mugwumps. They're everywhere. They're speaking out. At board meetings, City Hall, Town Square, Courthouse, State House, even the White House. They must be stopped. They are disruptors.
Welcome, everyone, to Mugwump Media. Welcome to a peaceful Disruptor Central, despite the craziness that's going on everywhere, Kevin.
Yeah, I've been kind of peaceful in our neck of the woods. I haven't had anybody show up. We haven't had any protesters here anyway.
I know. I'm glad to see you're not protesting tonight, Kevin.
Well, I thought about it, but I couldn't figure out what I was wanting to protest about.
You're trying to join the crowd?
Yeah, I did have a guy the other day run into him, and he asked me what I was doing. He said, well, I said, I'm trying to figure out how to pay our bills. I said, I think we're going to get it worked out this month. We're staying ahead of the game. And he said, well, it's no worry. He said, just put it on your card. And I said, well, why would I do that? He said, well, the government will pay it off. Odd thing was, he was serious. I had a hard time being polite to him after that. Kind of ruffled my feathers a little bit.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the rest of us pay for it. No, I know.
Well,
I know.
Yeah, we pay our share and then some.
Yep, I got you. Well, you know what? We're not going to worry about that tonight. We're here.
Good.
At a peaceful Disruptor Central.
Yes.
It looks like everything's going to hell in a handbasket, of course. Israel and Iran, a lot going on there. Now, this is Wednesday night as we're recording. And, of course, the show will come out on Sunday. And, a lot of things could happen between now and Sunday, Kevin. But I'm really not worried. I don't think God is going to bring us to this point and for things to fail. I think this is what it looks like when a country walks in a spirit of boldness and is strong, and I see Trump being strong and just telling him, heck no, you're not going to have nuclear weapons. You're not going to. So you better do something now, or you better clear out, and things might get messy. So I don't think it's a bad thing. Kevin and I, we lived through 9/11, the Bay of Pigs in the 60s. Everybody was running to caves to try to find shelter. And I'm serious. I think this is one of those times that we just got to hold on, and we got to keep praying, and I think things are going to be okay. I really do. And, Kevin, you survived the No Kings demonstrations.
I did. Didn't see any of the protesters. I didn't go anywhere, but there wasn't any showed up here. That was a good thing.
That's a really good thing. Pretty funny. And did you know that they weren't as big as they thought they were going to be? And obviously they were not. Everybody was just expecting the whole country to burn down, and it didn't. There were a few things that happened. They were widespread. One guy was killed, apparently, by a stray bullet in, I think it was Salt Lake City, a peacekeeping force. He was 39 years old. I
wonder if they were protesting firearms.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't read into it that much.
I did look at some of the signs and stuff on TV. Seemed like they had a mixed message. There was a lot of different things that didn't seem like they all had anything to do with one another. There wasn't any real single focus.
There were several topics, and if you asked any of them, they would scream at you, "I hate Trump!" Yeah. So I think it was I guess that
was the focus, was Trump, because it seemed like he's the reason for all their issues and problems.
I know. At least they think he is anyway. Yeah. So, and here's something really funny. It was going on around the world, and apparently there was a protest in London. Kevin, what do you find funny about that?
Well, I guess a monarchy might be a little bit of an issue if you're going to protest no kings.
They have a king.
Yeah.
I know. See, that's what I thought.
Parliament too, but the king's kind of, he's important to them all.
Yeah. So apparently they had to change the name on the fly to No Tyrants. So there you go. They fixed it, Kevin.
Took more than a Sharpie to do that.
A little ironic.
No kings, no tyrants. There's no common letters there, I don't think.
Yes.
I'll have to write that out and see how it looks if I could,
And let me tell you,
a puzzle.
The police and the National Guard really did their job. Apparently there were some people that got pelted with some rubber bullets and some bean bags and stuff like that. Managed to keep things in check.
Hard to believe you get aggressive with the police. They'd actually do something.
Do something back. I know. One guy. Yeah, one guy got hit in the eye, apparently got his eye put out by a rubber bullet. But there's no telling what he was doing to the police officer.
No.
Anyway, and I don't know if you heard this, Kevin, but apparently around the country in some places, there were people being paid to show up. Did you know that?
I heard that. Thought about applying, but I didn't want to hang out with them folks. Already paid pretty good.
I could just see them. If you had your Gulf of America hat on and everything, showing up with a sign and, hey, where's my check?
Yeah, I'd have fit right in. I'd been one other thing they could be protesting about.
I know. They might take your sign away and whack you over the head with it.
Probably.
In either Portland or Seattle, I didn't catch which place it was. I think they're interchangeable with their craziness. But apparently people were being paid $500 to show up. That's a lot of money. And we are in Christian County, Missouri. Springfield was the closest place where they were doing protesting here. Apparently, this was something that was reported by a local news source. Apparently, there were some incentives being offered in Springfield for people to show up. Now, what were those incentives? Probably money of some sort. I doubt it was $500 a person, but you never know.
Maybe a credit card.
Credit card. Put it on the credit card. The government will pay for it. Yeah. So anyway, despite all that, yes, definitely crazy stuff going on in Minnesota, and everybody's trying to figure out, was the guy liberal or was he conservative? I don't know. I think he was liberal, but anyway, we'll figure that out.
He was upset.
A lot of evil stuff for sure, but you know what? This is cool, and there's going to be a few bright spots I'm going to point out this evening. Folks, this all has to happen. I'm telling you, this is discovery. This is uncovering things. This is exposure. And these are things that just have to be, it has to be for us to get to the other side. It really does.
Got to ruffle a few feathers to set things right.
And that's the truth, too. You know what other demonstrations were going on across the country, apparently, Kevin?
Well, are they going to be entertaining, too?
Yes, they are.
Good.
Jesus is King rallies. Yeah.
I might go to one of them. I didn't know. Was there one close by?
No, well, I don't know. There may have been.
Okay. Well,
the only ones
make
that
sure
I
you
know
let
for
me know
sure.
when they come.
Yes, the only ones I know for sure. There was one in Denver, which is liberal, and there was one in Seattle, which is dangerous, as we talked about last week. But they were marching down the street. They had their music. They were singing praise songs, and they were carrying signs that said Jesus is King. So,
wonder if they got called names like we do when we
Probably.
go to public places.
Maybe so.
Probably.
Maybe so. Yeah. Christian nationalist. You terrible Christian nationalist. Yeah. Fascist. Christian fascist.
Keep trying to act upset when they call me names, and I just can't. I have a hard time taking them seriously for the most part.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, folks, today I am going to fill you in on some Missouri news. Now, I had alluded to this last week, and it wasn't all played out yet. I didn't have all the information, so I worked on that this week. And I tried to get it down, Cliff Notes. I tried to get it down as briefly as I can in language that you can understand, because I tell you, I am just cross-eyed after sitting and going through information 2 or 3 days a week. I spend time going through this stuff, and I'm learning, but it's really hard to get it down and get it deciphered down to where it's common language that people can understand, and you're not rattling off all these bill names and all these policy names and numbers, and basically just letting people know this is what's being voted on, or this is what was voted on and passed. You're going to have to live with it. This is what it is. Remember when you go to vote next time. And that's what this is, folks. And that is part of what we're doing. What Kevin and I are trying to do is trying to have a platform where we can tell people simple facts so that they can get it in here and they can pass it on to other people and say, you know, this person that's your representative in your county, this is what he did. You shouldn't vote for him or her.
Or tell them this is what yours did. You need to go ahead and call them and say that was a good job.
Say thank you and vote for him. So, and this is the process. This is what it's going to take to get to where we need to go. Anyway, with no further ado, today I'm going to fill you in on something called the Show Me Sports Investment Act. Now, you folks have probably already heard kind of what that is, but you all this stuff is so weird, and you don't know how it got passed and what does it mean and what does it mean to me, just common person going to work every day, coming home to my kids. What does this mean to me? Well, the Show Me Sports Investment Act made its first appearance. It is a pet project of Governor Kehoe, our new governor that we just got in November of 2025. I have to tell you something about Governor Kehoe. I'm just going to say this right off the bat. Kevin and I, we voted for him in the regular election. We did not vote for him in the primary. As a matter of fact, 61% of Missourians did not vote for him in the primary. The way he got in is questionable. The vote was split between two conservatives and him. And is this the truth? I don't know. I have no idea, and I'm not going to tell you it's the truth, but there are a lot of conservatives in Missouri that believe that there were liberals, Democrats, that managed to get in and vote for him in the primary, and that's how he ended up with so many votes. Is it the truth? I don't know. I do know, and I'm just going to tell you this. Kevin and I came from Democrat families. My dad was a union man. He worked for the railroad. When he saw people picketing somewhere on the union, he would make my mom, he would turn the car around. We had an old salmon-colored Ford, and he would turn the car around and make my mom go make sandwiches and take them back to the picket line. That's my dad. And I tell you, he would roll over in his grave if he knew what was going on with his party now. Although there's some shenanigans going on the other side, too. I tell you, uniparty. But anyway, when I was about 7 or 8 years old, my mother told me something. We had two channels. Remember, Kevin? Channel 10 and Channel 3.
Well, sometimes we had two channels.
During
sometimes
the summer,
we had
it was hard
none.
to see. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
We
hot
had a black-
summertime. Well, about 10 o'clock in the morning when the cartoons come on, everything kind of faded out to snow.
That's right.
And it wasn't cold.
We had a black and white
We didn't have air
TV.
conditioning.
Right. We had a black and white TV. And I can remember I was one of those weird kids. I used to read the dictionary. We've talked about that before. I'd sit around and read the dictionary. And I would watch news on TV sometimes. And I can remember as a little kid, I asked my mother, I said, "Mom, what's the difference between a Democrat and a Republican?" And I clearly remember her answer. She said, again, this was when my family were Democrats. She was not later in life. None of us are now. The last one was my Uncle Billy, and God bless him. He just passed away last year. He was a great guy. He was an old-fashioned Harry Truman Democrat. I think he finally just quit voting. I think he got so discouraged that he quit voting. But here's what my mom said to me. She said, Democrats are for the little guy. They're for the working people. Republicans, they're just for big business. And I have to say this, my mama wasn't wrong in many ways. Now, I will say that during the Ronald Reagan era, that's when most of my family became conservatives. But Reagan was a Democrat, and Reagan had a different way. He was a patriot. And at that time, a lot of old Democrats became Republicans because that was Reagan's party. That was the conservative party. That was a huge shift. And we're witnessing another big shift right now, Kevin.
Yes, we
with
are.
Trump, a reset.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to tell you, we know a little bit about him. Kevin has some experience with Kehoe. Not going to talk about it tonight. This man, I think, is the Republican, the kind of Republican my mama warned me about. I think he is a big business Republican. And I think he's got big visions of bringing in big money, and he is spending his way. I think it's time to call him Spendthrift Kehoe, thinking that he's going to increase the state of Missouri, but all he's doing is emptying the pockets, in my opinion, emptying the pockets of little people like us. Spendthrift Kehoe. So here's what he did. He came waltzing in at the end of the session, the last few days. This bill, the Show Me Sports Investment Act, did not go through any of the committees. Basically, he walked in, he told the House, he said, I really want to get this passed. This is a good thing for Missouri. So let's do it. Let's work together. Work with me. And he proceeded to start ramming and shoving this thing through the House. Well, it did pass in the House, and then they called a special session, Kevin, and they brought it back in, and on the 5th of June, it was voted on by the Senate. Now, I'm going to tell you a few things that happened in all this. First of all, I'm going to tell you kind of what it is. The core of this bill gives an estimated $1.5 billion in tax credits. Now, that ultimately does work out to real money, folks, even though there are people out there saying, oh, well, it's not actually taxes, it's tax credits. Guess what? There is going to be a shortfall in this year's budget. And guess who's going to have to fill that shortfall? Because now there is going to be $50 million annually going from this to the stadiums. So they're going to have to pick some pockets in order to fill that shortfall. Just saying. And this is actual estimations. The core of this bill gives an estimated $1.5 billion in tax credits spread out over 30 years, will be dead before it's paid, to the Kansas City Royals and the Chiefs to renovate and rebuild their stadiums. And as you guys probably know, they're all threatening to leave and go to Kansas. So now there's this war to keep them, right?
You kind of concerned me with that 30-year thing. I'll only be 95.
Okay. Well, we could be alive.
Well,
probably not. Looking good.
You're right.
Probably
You're
not
right.
doing very well.
You're correct on that one.
That's right. But anyway, it's to renovate and rebuild their stadiums. Now, there is going to be lost revenue because of this, $50 million a year. Now, the state's going to have to offset by alternative means, of course, like I just said. And this is something to keep in mind, folks. I don't know if you remember whenever we talked about some of these things that were passed this session. Kehoe's budget, again, spendthrift Kehoe, his budget will spend over $2 billion. This is the estimate, over $2 billion more than the state government expects to take in next year. It's the largest budget in history. I don't know if you guys knew that or not.
Some of that new math, isn't it?
He thinks that he's going to dump money into the system and make more money. I think he is absolutely wrong on this.
Well, we talked about this before, and if it makes so much money, I don't know why taxpayers would be asked to go ahead and contribute to it.
Especially across the state of Missouri. This is not going to help us. Now, it's debatable whether or not it will help people in Kansas City. And I'm going to read you a little bit that's going to kind of shoot that down. I guess I'm just going to say that.
I hope you got their opinion too.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I just got to say this, offering these kind of tax incentives or handouts or welfare to wealthy sports franchises are not popular. Now, there was actually an online survey of Missouri citizens that was conducted, and this was Missouri citizens. The question was asked, Kevin, should Missouri give the Kansas City Chiefs and Royals $1.5 billion of public tax dollars to fund construction of a new stadium? And it was put in parentheses under it, just to clarify for people. Sports team would fully own and operate this billion-dollar asset.
So we get to pay for it, but they get to own it.
It's theirs. We get nothing.
So there's no chance of recovering any of that money that they say we're going to make.
No. Apparently, spendthrift Kehoe thinks that dumping all that money into the system is magically going to float all boats.
Maybe he's the one to give that guy the other day a credit card. I don't know.
Well, okay. Anyway, here were the three categories. Yes, they need the dollars. That's category number 1. Yes, they deserve the dollars. Category number 2. No, cut our taxes instead. Category number 3. Kevin, which category do you think was most popular?
I hate to say out in public, somebody might protest me if I said what I thought.
Okay, I will tell you. Yes, they need the dollars was 7%. Number 2, yes, they deserve the dollars, 7% again. No, cut our taxes instead, 86%.
I'm in the majority again. I'll go ahead and say it.
We're both in the majority,
Kevin. Number 3.
And let me tell you, they actually tried to pass this in Kansas City. I believe that's Jackson County. They actually tried to pass this to get them all to fund it, and they voted it down in April of 2024.
They're needing some of that
They're
credit
no
card
dummies.
money. Mm-hmm.
They know. Anyway, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about these sports team people, just so you know. This was an article from Outkick, which is a news outlet, and this was their sports section, and it was written by a gentleman named Ian Miller. This was his opinion. He said, Kansas City Chiefs complaining after getting massive handout from Missouri taxpayers to renovate Arrowhead. Did you know they're complaining? They're complaining.
I was hoping that wasn't
They didn't get
true.
enough. This was published June 12th. And did you also know, folks, and if you didn't, I'm going to tell you, the Hunt family, owners of the Kansas City Chiefs organization, is one of the wealthiest families around. Forbes estimates their net worth at roughly $25 billion. They are billionaires, Kevin.
Well, if they got 25, I don't know why we need to give them 1.5 of it.
Right. And they're not from Missouri, too.
Well, that's interesting.
Now, and I want to read you something else, just bits and pieces. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but bits and pieces. This was something I looked up. It is from the Econofact Network, which appears to be an online think tank concerning economics. Stadiums as public investments. It was written by a gentleman named Andrew Zimbalist from Smith College. Smart fellow. The issue. Local governments have provided hundreds of millions of dollars in direct and indirect public subsidies to build professional sports facilities over the past 70 years in the United States. Did you know that? These facilities open new revenue sources and raise the asset value of the franchises for the private and wealthy owners of the sports teams. But does the use of public funds make sense for the best or for the host cities and counties? That's the question. Between 1970 and 2020, state and local governments devoted approximately $33 billion in public funds to construct major league sports venues in the United States and Canada. So this has been going on for a long time, and they have discovered things, and that's what this article is talking about. It's not profitable like they think it is, folks, as Kehoe thinks it is, apparently. Let's see. As stadiums and arenas have grown more elaborate and construction, and not only that, but also rules and regulations in cities and counties. You can't just throw something up anymore. It has become more expensive. Prices have skyrocketed. But the share of the cost covered by public funds over the years has been decreasing from close to 100% in the 70s to an estimated median share of 44.2% in the 2010s. And I bet it's gone down even more since then because they figured out they're not making any money. Here's the next question, or the next question. What do cities and counties get in return for their public investment? Kevin, I want to know the answer to this because we have to pay for it now, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Scholarly econometric studies, that's a big word. It's a good thing I read the dictionary, on the impact of professional sports stadiums are almost unanimous in their conclusion that they do not promote employment or per capita income growth. Despite the outsized role they play in U.S. cultural life and in the media, everybody loves the Chiefs. Good grief. You can even go to church. You can go everywhere. On game day, everybody can't wait to get home. They got to leave church. They're watching their watches, trying to make sure they make it home for the game. They're wearing their hats. They're wearing their colors. People love the Chiefs, obviously. But not enough to pay them all this money. Anyway, I'm going to proceed. Professional sports teams, just so you guys know, generally are going to be small to modest size enterprises. They're not what you think. A typical NFL team might employ 125 to 175 full-time people in its front office. That's the biggest part of their employees.
That'd be the administration.
Yeah, that's it. And of course, the players. And an additional 2,000 game day employees for 4 hours. 10 days a year.
Just game days, it?
That's it.
Huh. Well,
if we consider the total annual revenues generated by a sports team relative to its host city's GDP, The team contributes between, get this, Kevin, 1/3 and 1/20th of 1% to the local area economy. And this is the local area, much less the whole state.
We're a little bit ways
We're not gonna
away
get
from
anything.
Kansas City. I doubt we get any of the trickle down
Other
from
than a
that.
headache from not having money. Moreover, spending on sports games does not imply new net spending within the metropolitan area. This is a good point. Most residents have a budget. When they spend, say, $200 to take their family to a game, it's $200 that they don't have to spend at a restaurant, a theater, a bowling alley, or other entertainment venues. And the lion's share of the income goes to the players, the coaches, the top executives, and the team owners who are less likely to spend the bulk of their earnings in the stadium's metro area. Depending on the franchising deal between the city and the team, the local government can experience a fiscal loss at this point. That is, the public cost may actually exceed the new public revenue from the facility construction.
Kind
There's-
of reminds me of when Walmart came to our hometown. Everybody was excited, and boy, they said it was going to be,
Until it drove mom and pop out of
well,
business.
downtown
No.
dried up, died, and it's not there anymore.
Welcome to the new Walmart thing.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
it's not a very,
That's right.
well, it's okay, but
And then they go and they support these No Kings movements with
yeah,
the money they make. I
that's a
know.
problem.
There is also the issue of opportunity cost. And this is valid too. If the stadium were not built, would the allotted acreage sit idle, or would it be developed for other purposes? What would the purposes be? And would that business actually contribute to the economy and the tax base? Eureka, Kevin. It might actually make money
Yeah, yeah.
instead of sitting there with corporate welfare. Imagine that. That is a novel idea. Further, the city often takes an additional financial responsibility. This often happens when they end up taking these guys on with this tax credit stuff. They take on additional financial responsibilities for the stadium over time, such as capital contributions and infrastructure maintenance. Traffic control, security, the whole 9 yards.
Well,
They
just
end up
the-
having to put out other tax dollars on it.
Just the law enforcement and
Oh, I know.
emergency services costs would be
I
pretty
know,
significant
absolutely.
just to have everybody available, whether something happened or not.
And that is so true, Kevin. So you're getting the picture here. Governor Kehoe is no dummy. He's realizing that people are probably, especially after Kansas City voted it down in April, he's beginning to understand he's going to have to figure out a way. And I mean, he's gung-ho on this. For some reason, he really wants this to get through. Maybe he's a football fan. I don't know. I just don't want it paid with my tax dollars. But he figured out he was going to have to be forced to find a way legislatively to convince people to get the votes for his project. So he included some other things. You know what he included in it, Kevin?
Well, I'm sure you're going to tell us here.
I am. Now, I absolutely love Liberty Link Missouri PAC, if anybody is watching this from there. They provided some of the things that were included in this bill package. Let's see, $360,559,065 were spent on, budget, planning, and capital improvement. Appropriates money for several departments and offices of state governments, divisions, programs, planning, and capital improvements. You also had money, SB 1, to appropriate money to the Department of Economic Development for the Missouri Housing Development Commission. It's a lot of words. And this is, research centers, Department of Ag, Missouri State Fair, Department of Natural Resources, state parks, Department of Conservation, yada, 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 that type of thing. And once again, very same, $360,559,065, very same amount. Disaster relief, which is what obviously was needed. This was the first thing he told them. He said, hey, we had a lot of tornadoes this year. We need some disaster relief. And that's true.
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing. SB 4 authorizes the expedited disbursement of funds from the Missouri Housing Trust Fund for emergency aid. Now, there's no actual dollars there because they appropriate as necessary. It basically gave the authority to expedite disbursement of funds from the Missouri Housing Trust. So I guess that's to be determined whenever it's actually spent.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that was the other things that were included. So back to Kehoe. He first referenced the St. Louis tornadoes to get some support for disaster relief that's in the bill. Then he addressed the escalating property tax crisis. If you folks haven't figured out what's going on, in short, I'm going to tell you quickly what happened. And this wasn't something, I don't believe this was something that necessarily that Kehoe did. There is a Missouri Tax Commission. If you're not aware of them, there are 3 people that are in it. They are appointed by governors. I believe at least 2 of these people, I don't know for sure, I didn't look up all of it, but at least 2 of these people, probably, maybe 1 or 2, I doubt 3 of them because they have staggered 6-year terms. But basically, a couple of them were probably appointed by Parsons, who he wasn't my favorite governor either. These people basically are over taxes, how taxes are done, tax regulations. They help the counties. They're basically over taxes. They make decisions concerning state taxes and help govern the counties with their taxation. So right after the election, 80 of our county assessors were called in to the governor's office. And what they were told was that they were going to have to up their game. They were told that their counties, which most of them are going to be rural counties, small counties without a lot of commerce, a lot of people there are loggers, farmers, truck drivers. They probably don't have big businesses. Those people, their properties are not assessed at the value that somebody with a mansion on a piece of property in a city would be. Christian County, we have very high taxes, one of the highest taxed counties in Missouri. We're next to a big city, Springfield. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. But the people that they called in were these rural counties folks. In front of them, they placed a paper called a Memorandum of Understanding. Now, basically, what this Memorandum of Understanding told them was that they were going to have to increase their property's appraisals by at least 15%, or at least this was what was told to them by the governor. I don't know what exactly was in this Memorandum of Understanding, but I'm assuming that it was something similar. They're going to have to increase property appraisals by at least 15%. Get this, folks, to comply with the International Association of Assessing Officers.
International.
Not Missouri, not United States, international. What the heck does that mean is what I want to know. And when this came about and I saw all this, and I was so busy with other things at that time, I was very troubled, but I thought, this can't be good. What the heck? So basically, what the next thing that it says is that this International Association of Assessing Officers, Missouri is aiming for 90 to 110% of market value to be assessed.
According to international?
Well, according to the tax commission. These 3 people who are apparently wanting to meet the standards of the International Association of Assessing Officers. These are 3 people we need to
put eyes on.
Well, I would think so, Kevin. Mm-hmm. I would think so. Anyway, this is going to mean, folks, that a lot of people in rural counties are going to be getting, if you haven't already seen your tax bill and had your breath taken by it, you're going to. But these poor assessors were sent back after being, some of them just elected by their counties, and they were told, you either sign this and you either get with the program and increase your property taxes on your citizens, or they would be punished. What is the punishment, you say? The State Tax Commission, and this was a statement by Missouri Shield Maidens, the State Tax Commission should not have the authority to harm counties by withholding sales tax if they refuse to increase property tax onto international standards that are driving these increases across the state. So basically, they are going to be punished. They'll face non-compliant counties will face penalties such as withheld sales assessments and sales taxes.
So you're telling me that our county assessor that we elect in our county does not have the authority to set our tax rate anymore?
They were strong-armed and told that they have to increase them. Basically, they're wanting a one-size-fits-all. They're wanting, and you know what, Kevin? I can't help but wonder if this is to offset some of the money that is going to be taken and given to these sports. And I don't know that, folks. I can't say that for sure, but this is all very suspicious. He called them into the office and basically stuck it in front of them. Now, as homeowners were receiving notices of these significant tax increases, we got a nasty one this spring.
It's got pretty normal every time.
The governor widened the scope, Kevin, of the special session to include...
I feel like I had a scope, all right.
To include property tax relief, of course. Now, why do you think that is, Kevin?
Well, they need money, apparently.
Well, he needed votes, is exactly what he needed. And he knew that people were going to be at first they're going to be calling their assessors and saying, "What are you doing?" And the assessors are saying, "I'm sorry, they told us we have to do this." Then you know who they're going to call, their senator and their House member. So with the heat probably on them, he decided that he was going to widen the scope of the special session to include property tax relief, which ultimately secured additional votes. It did. He got some votes from it. Now, the Missouri Freedom Caucus initially opposed the bill, and they were pushing for comprehensive tax relief for everybody. We all need tax relief in the state of Missouri. Things have gotten ridiculous.
Agreed.
But then, Kevin, something nefarious happened. A late-night deal was added on June the 5th.
How late?
2:00 in the morning.
Interesting.
In
That's
the
a concern. Yeah.
This compromise allowed the senators to choose. There was a compromise that was added on June the 5th. This was what was added. This compromise allowed the senators to choose for their county's constituents one of three options: a 5% annual cap on property tax increases. Number 2, a freeze on 2024 levels. Number 3, no protection. Kevin, guess what Christian County got?
Go ahead.
No protection.
Interesting.
So basically, our already high property taxes are going to keep going up. Anyway, this was what was added. This 3 options was added, and I'm just going to tell you, Kevin, this is against the Missouri Constitution.
I think it's against a lot of things.
And I'll explain why here in a minute. These options, and they did end up getting passed, but they may get stripped out because if they get challenged, they're not going to pass. These options will require voter approval in April of 2026. And again, these representatives and senators are looking at this. This was before the final nefarious act was done at 2:00 in the morning. This was before that.
2:00 in the morning is interesting.
And I'll tell you what that was here in just a minute.
Okay.
But this was initially what set it off. They were looking at this and they were thinking, okay, this will help. We're going to get this sports museum or sports stadiums tax credits, but I'm going to be able to get some tax relief for my citizens. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. We need to do this. This is what people were thinking. However, there are some constitutional concerns with the property tax provisions, and this is what was added, Kevin. This was added at 2:00 in the morning. I think it was snuck in. A severability clause was added to the final bill at around 2 a.m. on June 5th. Now, this suggests that the legislators were anticipating legal challenges to the property tax provisions. They're against the Constitution in several ways. The severability clause would ensure that if one part of the bill is struck down by a court and deemed not constitutional, the remainder of the bill remains intact. The stadium money would remain.
Amazing. Shocking.
And just so you know, this is not normal protocol. When I was reading, all this reading over the last 2 days, that was one of the remarks that I heard and read was this severability clause. It's not something they normally do. It's a bad faith move. Either you approve of something and you're going to try to pass it or you're not.
Kind of reminds me of, 2 o'clock in the morning just kind of struck me. But when I was a teenager, I can remember our local city cop, if we were in town, it got midnight, he'd always say, "Y'all need to go home." And I remember one time I asked him why. He said, by midnight, if you're not home, he said, there's nothing good comes after midnight. He said, that's when the problems are.
Right. Well, apparently in politics too.
Yeah, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Anyway.
No good.
The property tax provisions, of course, vary by county, and that is against the Constitution. Because according to, it potentially violates Article 3, Sections 40 and 42 of the Missouri Constitution. This is one of the things. These sections prohibit carve-outs. They prohibit carve-outs. They want the same law spread, for everybody. Everybody gets a tax cut. Everybody has a provision. You don't pick and choose.
No.
It's not a smorgasbord, Kevin. And it also grants courts the legal right to assess the necessity of any special carve-outs. So basically, they jumped the gun. They put this in there. Nothing had necessitated this. They just basically did carve-outs, and they did it on the fly. And additionally, the bill may go against the Hancock Amendment by imposing unfunded mandates. You know why, Kevin? Because it requires counties to fund elections for the property tax measure when it goes on the ballot for each individual county. They're like, nope, we're not going to reimburse you. You get to pay for it. The Hancock Amendment says you can't do that. That's against the Constitution of Missouri. So they couldn't even put it on the ballot. That was not even cared for. This was so sloppy, I can't even imagine. A second grader. This is slop.
Well,
Either slop or intentional is what I'm thinking. Anyway, these and other legal vulnerabilities undermined that promised property tax relief. Honestly, I think it might be on purpose. Now, when the vote was taken 45 minutes later, Kevin, after this severability clause was mysteriously added, this bill and the distribution of millions of dollars passed by a narrow 2-vote margin. Do you know who switched their votes?
well, go ahead and say it.
2 members of the Freedom Caucus, who had initially said, no way, Jose, we want everybody. Everybody needs tax relief. We're not going to do a carve-out. They switched their vote. And it makes me wonder, it was 45 minutes later, I wonder if they even knew what had been added, because do you remember, Kevin, the pictures that I told you I saw online were basically on those 2 or 3 days, they literally had stack up on stack of all these bills, and they throw them at those senators. I don't know that they fully understood what they were voting for.
I don't know that you could.
I can't say for sure, but it looks like a trick to me. Anyway,
Well, it's not one item bills
it's
to
everything.
vote on.
It's yes.
Yes, it's just more it's a soup.
Single subject. It's
a
all
soup with just a little bit of rat poison here and there.
right, with the promise of crumbs.
Mm-hmm.
They promised them crumbs,
Yeah.
and this is what they got. It passed by a narrow 2-vote margin with support from Senators Rick Bratton and Senator Brad Hudson, both of whom are Missouri Freedom Caucus members, and Senator Jill Carter. Now, their votes were pivotal, as the bill would have failed without at least 2 of them switching their positions. This mess would have failed. Senators Bratton and Jill Carter, defended those switched votes by comparing the proposed tax relief in the bill to the senior citizens tax freeze, which has never faced legal challenges. But here's the difference, folks. That was every county. Every county was given that option of the tax freeze for senior citizens.
Yes.
It was uniform across the board. It's like comparing apples and oranges. Again, a second grader would know different than that if you read this stuff, if you knew it. But here's the problem. Again, county specific. And remember, that method of carving out deals among the counties violates the Missouri Constitution. Now, after the defection of the Freedom Caucus members and the ultimate passage in the Senate of the Show Me Sports Investment Act, the fallout was fast. Senator Bratton resigned as caucus chair. He was the chair of the Freedom Caucus. And folks, here is the truly disturbing truth about this bill. The severability clause, like I said, it's rare in Missouri legislation. It was added in the final hour, 45 minutes before the passage. I hate to be cynical, folks, but it looks like the senators knew that the property tax relief options were unconstitutional. And I think they knew that if they were struck down, that the severability clause would protect the rest of the bill and the $1.5 billion sports team credits. I really hate to say this, but it looks suspiciously like those property tax provisions were designed to provide political cover for conservative senators and representatives to support that bill. And of course, if the property tax relief is overturned, who cares? They've already got the votes and the money. Too late. The old bait and switch. Mm-hmm. Now, once the bill was passed by the Senate and was brought to the House, things moved very quickly. And there were separate problems in the House. The House approved SB 3 by a vote of 90 to 58 on June 11th. Now, critics argue that the bill was rushed through without adequate scrutiny. You think? Bypassing committees left and right that handle tax legislation, they simply breezed them through and sent them to other committees that had supporters. The Economic Development Subcommittee had more supporters. They voted 11-2 to recommend passage immediately after in-person testimony, before the online testimony window closed. Now, I got to tell you something, folks. There are a lot of people that were watching this, and online testimony, those were committed people that were watching, that were very upset. They went online, they took the time out of their day or their evening to fill out this online testimony and send it in. And according to the Missouri Constitution and or the House rules, there is a set amount of time that they have to allow. They have to allow it, Kevin, for all this testimony, both personal and online, to actually be allowed. They shut it down before the window was over. They shut it down. And I think one of the reasons they did is because they saw how many people were sending things in. It was embarrassing how many. Let me tell you, there was 172 against and 5 in favor. And they shut it down early. I'm telling you, the citizens' voices were ignored.
Yes.
Signaling what critics are calling extreme disrespect by House members for Missourians.
Yes.
And I tell you what, anybody who voted for John Patterson, at this point, they need to apologize because this man was in control. This did not have to happen. This is disrespect. He not only did not get initiative petition reform passed, but now this crap has been shoved down our throats, and he allowed it. And if you voted for that man, you need to apologize to your constituents. Anyway, they were ignored. The lightning-fast approval limited public engagement and debate and ultimately undermined the transparency. But let me tell you some good stuff, folks. This is good stuff, and I'm going to end you with this, okay? True conservatives fought back. Do you know who fought back? The 10.
That's right.
The Brave 10. On the floor, Representative Justin Sparks, Maisie, and Bryant Wolfen, Maisie
Yes.
Christensen, they got up and gave impassioned pleas. Lisa Durnell, Sweet
Yes.
Lisa, she got up and hers was good. I listened to it and it was wonderful. They tried to talk sense to these other Republicans who were voting for this crap.
They were speaking for the people.
They were speaking for the people. Justin Sparks proposed Amendment 1, which would have removed the severability clause and replaced it with a non-severability clause. Therefore, it would have required the courts to invalidate the whole bill if any part was not constitutional. That was the test.
Yep.
Was this a trick or wasn't it? Guess what? The amendment failed, 90 to 26. I smell a rat, Kevin.
And some rat poison.
It was a trick. They knew what they were doing. This really leads you to believe that those property tax provisions were just a temporary ploy designed to be severed, leaving the stadium deal intact. And the speaker is now talking about calling yet another special session, Kevin. Not sure what it is, but it sounds like he's trying to deal with the property tax relief fiasco. He may be getting a lot of fallout, as he should, but who knows? But I'm going to tell you what the good part is in this, Kevin. We had 26 people stand up this time.
Right.
On January 8th, the fiasco that happened whenever they put that man in and Justin Sparks stood up, they literally, you remember the special committee that tried to incriminate him over nothing, bringing lawsuits, everything else? Justin Sparks stood up bravely and he brought up an amendment to expose what they were doing.
Yes.
And this time, Kevin, it was more than 10. It was 26.
Yep. Double.
Thank you, God.
Double and then some.
People stood up. That's the good thing. We'll see what happens with all that. Now, I'm going to tell you briefly, constitutional challenges, it's not just the fact that it's specific to different counties, but it's also, or it's county specific, but also violations of single subject requirement, clear titles, and restrictions on private funds for public benefit. Obviously. Kevin, we need to close with that. What do you have to say?
Well, the only thing I got to say is, in all their maneuvering and everything, there's one thing they left out that generally gets included in something like this. I don't guess anybody said, well, it's for the kids.
Yeah.
I think that's about the only thing that wasn't tried here.
Yeah.
Didn't have to, apparently.
That's right. Well, folks, thanks for joining us again this weekend. Sorry to give you a little bit of a downer, but you need to know this.
24.
This is 62. This is something you need to know. And I don't know if Kevin's going to be able to put up, we've got a couple of graphics that actually show who voted for it. We might get it put up, hopefully. But this is something that you need to know. And it is going to affect you and your family. But folks, no matter what, don't get discouraged and tune out, because this is the stuff that builds the hearts and courage of people that are going to step up and are going to primary these people. And don't forget, it started with 10. We got 26 now. And one of the bright spots that I've heard from Jefferson City watchers is that the truly good thing in all of this is what we're not even seeing yet. The people who they see coming forward to challenge these politicians and win their seats. And that's going to change the landscape of Missouri's politics. And the 10 who are now 20 will be 40, then 60, and beyond. Don't lose hope, folks, for sure. Father God, let it be so, that these things will take place.
In Jesus' name.
Folks, we'll be back again next week, and we're going to bring you some good news next time, not this stuff. And regardless, we're always going to strive to keep you informed, inspired, and always independent. We're going to tell you the truth. God bless.